Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special joint episode of Carry On Friends, Style and Vibes, and the Reels to the Rhythms. I'm always excited when we do these crossover episodes because I feel like, as Michaela said, beer things. Welcome my co-host, Michaela Medoops. What is going on?
A long time still in a carry. With the power chilla be still, as you say.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And we're even more excited because we have Jess with us. Jess, welcome to this crossover event. Oh, yes, dear.
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited. I love the name too. Reels and Rhythms is a good name.
Love it. All right. Everybody already know Michaela and myself, so we're just going to skip to them knowing who you are. So tell the people them a little bit about who you are, Caribbean country you represent, the work you do, and then we'll get into the project we are here to talk about.
Sure, yeah. I am originally from Jamaica. Actually, I was born in New York, but I was never raised here, so I don't rep it like the same way because I was raised in Jamaica. So I was raised in Kingston. Went to Hopefield Prep and then Campion. Shout out to all the Campion massive, and then I came back here for college. As when I was about 17. So I've been here in New York for a long time, and I consider both home at this point. And so I've been working in TV now for over a decade. I would say since 2013 officially. So we're in 24. Where are we in? 2024. So I've been 11 years of TVs, and I've done a bunch of different positions across TV. But this doc coming up is kind of like my first doc by myself. I've worked on stuff on Netflix, and I do a lot of Food Network shows as a producer. I've been working a lot of A&E stuff lately and PBS. I do like a food show for PBS every year, but I love music. So that's really why I'm happy to be doing this. So I kind of do two things, food shows and music.
Well, two things dear to a heart. We
Yes,
love we belly and we love music. So you're
yeah,
right in the company of me and Michaela. All
exactly.
right. So we reached out to you because you have, and I'll throw it to Michaela to finish the rest. You have a documentary that's coming out that's called Roots, Rock, Reggae, and Michaela, cue you,
Souls.
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 So I was so excited when I saw this project because, as Michaela said, I've been in a chill and be still semi sabbatical. But when I saw it, I was just like, this was kismet. It was meant to be because Michaela and I talk about dancehall and the segments in dance. You have the praise and worship, you have the throwback tunes, you have the souls section. We have all these things, and it's very hard for people to understand like why we do these things. So talk to me about the project, why you started it, and all that good stuff.
Okay, so I again grew up in Kingston, and I every night would listen to Fame FM every night. Right, so like I didn't have TV in my room, so every night, even now I still do it with like Spotify. I listen to souls at night, which is it can range. That's why it's called soul and not souls and not R&B, because it can range from country to pop ballads to soft rock. It really, I don't really know what the exact definition is. We'll get into that in the doc, but we know when we hear it what is souls, right? We know certain artists are probably not souls. We're not playing them at the dance, right? And so I've always loved this part of Jamaican culture in general. I just find it so fascinating how we love artists like Marty Robbins and Patsy Cline and these really old country artists. And on a Sunday, up until I think when Zip FM maybe came on the scene, which was, I forgot which year Zip debuted in Jamaica, we never played dance hall and those things on a Sunday. On a Sunday, it was always you go back, right? And it was for after church, and you don't play buju, even though I love buju dearly, but you're not playing that kind of more, even though buju is not super hardcore, but you know what I'm saying? You're not playing an Elephant Man on a Sunday. You're not playing certain artists, Ninja Man on a Sunday. You're playing older artists. You're playing old country. So I've always thought about this, and what really sparked the doc is two things. One, I was in Paris with some friends, and I was playing Water from the Moon. We were like all playing music, and like our friends Paris laughed, and they just didn't love Water from the Moon. And I was like, what? This is our song. I was so hurt internally. And then last year, my dad got an award for his service to Jamaica, on the Heroes Day. So he got one of the awards for his service as an air traffic controller. So, but the night I was only there for 36 hours in Jamaica. And I went to this party called I Love Souls. And it's every Sunday night. Shout out to them. We're gonna work with them on the dock. And I was like, uptown people can be a little stiff, but everybody was dancing, everybody was singing, everybody I beat them juice, and I sing out to Celine and Michael Bolton and Lady in Red. And I was like, I realized that some songs are songs that just we love in the Caribbean from the Paris incident, right? The Paris situation. And then I was like, it's just, I've never gone to a place in the world, and I've traveled a lot, where people only play this for the entire night and dance. Like, people love Celine all over the world. We're not unique in loving Celine, but to go to a place and you only hear soft rock and Michael Bolton and Air Supply and, you know what I mean, Meatloaf maybe, right? That is unusual for the rest of the world. And so I was like, somebody should do a doc on this. And then I was like, why don't I just do it? Like, you make television, So yeah, anyway, so that's really where it came from.
I think what I love about what you shared is the inspiration behind it, and the fact that you saw something that was missing and you said, well, I'm capable of doing this, let me do it.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, that is cultural preservation at its finest. And I think Souls, as it is known, that section, that genre is very unique to the Caribbean. And it really goes back to what we played on radio. So even going further back, reggae wasn't even allowed on radio.
Right.
So what we heard, and we've seen glimpses of this in other documentaries. So the one with Biggie talking about how he went back to Jamaica, and his mom really talking about how her favorite artist. And then even in a past podcast episode with Miss Pat, she talked about selling R&B records on the road through her record label, at a record store at the time. So they weren't even the label. So it just goes with the culture, essentially, of how that really grew. But I'm curious, even in that party, has Souls transcended to this next generation? I know that they listen to R&B, and I know that they listen to other genres, but Souls as we know it, of this nice little presentable box, has that transitioned to the next generation? I don't know, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, there were some younger people there. I'm a millennial for sure. I'm probably like a geriatric millennial at this point. But yeah, there were younger people there. I would say it tended to lean probably, younger millennial and up at the party. But there were some people I know for sure in like probably their mid-20s, because I feel like their parents' music now is probably like Usher and Beyonce and some of those, or Keisha Cole, right? That's why that song Love has been like all over. I feel like in some ways we're the aunties now, and so like that's their so it might, I think for them, maybe some of the older, super old stuff might not know that stuff, but they still understand, I think, the concept of it as a like R&B, but you could also have an Ed Sheeran, which is in the same box, even though he's a pop artist. You know what I mean? I think that still does translate, but I don't think they maybe know, unless they have their grandparents still around, like Marty Robbins, who lots of Jamaicans love Marty Robbins. I love him too.
One of the things you said before, and I don't know if you'll cover this, but I'm in the Gen X generation, so I grew up when there was just one, it was just JBC. and everything else was radio and TV sign off. And the radio format, you talked about it on Sunday, right? Sunday morning before church collectively starts. So most churches would start at 10. You play your Christian music. After that, they get into the country music. And by late afternoon, it's some Latin type music, whether it's bossa nova or some salsa. And then as we get into the nighttime, it gets to be the souls or whatever, right? And there was a particular radio format. My favorite radio disc jockey growing up was Donovan Dakers. I loved Donovan Dakers, right? So how much has radio played a role in our love of souls, given that for a very long time we were a one channel country and multiple radio stations? And to Michaela's point, do you think now, where even though Jamaica is still a heavy radio country, but not as much with social media and stuff, how does that play a role in the younger generation experiencing souls the way we experienced it?
Well, because I don't live there full time anymore, I don't know if they listen to it the way we do, but I think radio, in a lot of ways, I think radio is super important to Jamaican life, right? I used to live my life by RJR in the mornings. Like literally, they had like a, you know, they used to have a segment for everything, like at 10 past the hour, 15 past the hour, third, I think at 6:30 in the morning, it was news, 6:45. So I think a lot of people listen to the radio, and I think it really helps shape how we think about like even the way things should be played. I think with souls in particular and older music like country and R&B in a lot of ways, that is the foundation, I think, of what you know in radio. And I think that to that point about the radio station being the one, I think that is the foundation for what all radio stations did up until maybe like 15 years ago. I think up until Zip, and I'm not saying Zip is bad, I'm just saying it's up until I think when Zip came along and they started playing more secular music on a Sunday, most radio stations still followed that kind of tiered thing on a Sunday. Morning, gospel. Afternoon, you got your old country with your Patsy Cline and your Skeeter Davis. Afternoon, you might get into a little older, softer disco, right? You might play some, ABBA, right? Or something like that. And then evening time, you might go a little bit more R&B, Shy Lights, OJs, things like that. So I actually think radio is really, really foundational in terms of like what we consider how we listen to music, our palette in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna let Michaela jump in after this, but it's so interesting in terms of the difference because I left Jamaica in '93. So when I left Jamaica, IRI FM was coming online. So generationally, IRI FM was different because when IRI FM came on, you're like, oh my God, we get more reggae. Versus for you, it was Zip because then they took it to that next level versus where IRI never really went. So I love this idea of what radio has done for us musically, in how we relate to souls and our love for souls. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of call that out. Michaela?
No, me did that signal say you can't go on.
All right. So we know souls is a miscellaneous category for anything that feels very R&B, soft rock, soft pop, if you want to say. What else? It's anything where we feel like it's singing to a particular, like soulful singing. Maybe that's why we call it souls. It's interesting, and you now living in New York, all three of us, we carried that to New York because being in Brooklyn, they used to keep dance where it was a completely souls team dance. The whole night is souls, right? And so I want to ask a really fun question back and forth, so we could, add this light. When we think of dancehall and dancehall parties, Jamaica or the US, what is the number one soul song you think they're going to play in the dance? In your opinion, Michaela and Jess, what's the number one song so them are going to pull a tune here in the soul section of this dance?
So my instinct, like once he said it, my instinct was Michael Bolton, Soul Provider.
Mm.
That's like the sound that
And then they rinse it with the Romy and Virgo and come
yeah,
up.
it just came to my mind instantly. It's one of my favorite soul songs. I think they love, like, we know Jamaicans love Michael Bolton. So that is my, I guess I was going to go with my instinct and say Michael Bolton, Soul Survival.
Yeah,
Soul
I
Provider.
gotta go with my instinct too. First name came to mind was Celine Dion, but the song that came to mind is Like a Virgin, Madonna.
Interesting.
The song that comes to my mind is "Guilty" with Barbara Streisand and Barry Gibb. Then we got nothing to be guilty. Oh,
Oh
uh,
yes, we love that song.
Yes,
We really
yes,
do love that song. It's true. We also
yes.
love this just one Celine.
I'm alive.
No,
Anything Celine,
they
just
love
run it.
anything
Wait,
Celine,
I
but they
think the
love
best
I
part is
Surrender.
the men dance to these soul songs. God, them broke out same way like the woman there.
But that's another thing. Well, that's one of the things that really is a big part of the doc for me that I want to make sure I touch on is that Jamaicans also, and I can't speak for other islands, but Jamaicans in particular pick their own singles. So there are songs that are just popular in Jamaica. And I say this because I've been doing a lot of research, right? And artists would come to Jamaica. Like Kenny Rogers, the first time he came, I don't want to give too much away from the doc, but like Kenny Rogers came to Jamaica, and our favorite song is "Write Your Name Across My Heart." Right? We love that song. It's one of our favorite songs outside of The Gambler, probably. And it's not a single. It was never released. So the promoter was like, "Listen, you have to close with this song." And so he's been interviewed by Winford Williams, and he's like, "Oh, we're not going to do that." And I know he did it because I read the article after in Blino. And so the promoter must have been like, absolutely not, right? This is your gambler here, right? Like, and Jamaicans do that a lot. We'll pick a song. I don't know what exactly we gravitate to in the song. And that's our favorite song. There's like this one random Celine Dion song that they play at the dance all the time that literally nobody I've ever mentioned it to in America knows it. They were like, what? And they know a lot of Celine Dion songs, but they don't know this song. I think it's called something about her mother. I forget the name of it. It's like, Mama, you gave me wings to fly. Like,
I know that song.
it is not a single,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I think it's Goodbye is the Hardest Word. I think that's the name of the song. And it's really a hit in Jamaica, particularly like downtown. I don't know why. Like, I don't know where it came from. So I don't know. Jamaicans, like, the taste really fascinates me, like what they gravitate towards and what they kind of reject. You know?
It's so interesting because when I used to go back to Jamaica for vacation, I would hear songs play on the radio that I didn't hear it, even on the R&B station here. Particularly, there was a song with James Ingram and Anita Baker from a movie, and I was just like, I've never heard this song, and people are like, "What is this?" Like, it wasn't even played on the black stations here, and in Jamaica, I mean, almost every night it play after. It's just like I had no choice but to know it. So, another fun question for both of you: who is an artist that for you, Jess, that this artist in Jamaica, but you in America, they're like, who is this? And Michaela, maybe for you, it's what's a song that that you went to Jamaica for the summer or for holiday or whatever, and you heard it and you came back and everyone's like, what is this? Sort of like Biggie's experience.
Yeah, I think it was more the group Air Supply. I'm like, I don't know who Air Supply is. And then they start playing song. I'm like, oh yeah, I do know Air Supply. And I'm like, but I can't put a face to the songs because I didn't know who they, you know what I mean? Like the name of the band. It's only like probably maybe even the last 10 years that I even really did the research on who, and it was because of probably like my mother-in-law like talking about Air Supply, and I'm like, who's that? And I'm like, Air Supply, man, them tune, yeah, and them play the tune, and oh yeah, me know that song. But true, my mother was a rebel, so I'll be a reggae, she play. I'll be a reggae and dancer, she play. So my auntie was the Souls, and I mean, my lady, she would have lock up in her room and have vice out every song. And at that time it was, you know, she came here, so she was listening to R&B stations, so it's mostly, and then she'd make like have to like put in tapes and all these kind of, so that's how I really got exposed to the souls. And then when I would go to Jamaica, I'd hear like CDs and parties that would have those segments, and it just kind of stuck. I'm like, yes, only it's one of those best kept secrets of Jamaica, to be completely honest. And it's one that I think we should preserve because it's so
I know,
good.
I agree. The funny thing is, when I started working on this, I'm going to answer your question, but when I started working on this, I looked up Air Supply because I was like, oh, we love so many of their songs. And there's all these Reddit threads and stuff where like, oh, Air Supply sucks, and like Celine Dion is the worst, and like Michael Jackson is like the worst. Like not Michael Jackson, I'm so sorry, Michael Bolton. And you know, they've parodied him in movies about how his music sucks. And I'm just like, what? This is amazing. Like, how dare you come for Michael Bolton and Kenny G and these people? To your point about artists, though, I think unless I met somebody from the South, like from the, you know, who grew up in Tennessee or um, not even Florida, like, you know, like deep South, Tennessee and South Carolina, people don't know Marty Robbins. And Marty Robbins is a really old artist, so that makes sense. But I listened to him a lot in Jamaica, actually, growing up. Like, the El Paso song is huge. In the doc, I'm gonna draw a lot of parallels, and I have a whole graphics thing in mind. But between like some of the lyrics and some of the songs from like people like Marty Robbins to some of the dancehall lyrics, which I think I think there's a chain. You know, the big iron on his hip to, you know, cartel on him, 9,000 guns that he name drops, and you know, I think Jamaicans love an outlaw, right? That you hear it with a rude boy. They love an outlaw. They love a rebel. And dancehall is like rebel culture in a lot of ways. And so I actually think a lot of it is rooted in like country and Western movies and music
Yes.
to where you get to dancehall and some of the same themes. I think even some lyrics in some cases overlap, which I'm.
Even the names of the artists,
Oh
Brigadier
yeah,
Jerry,
Josie Wales.
Josie Wales.
Johnny Osborne,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, yeah, and that's because we only had one station, right? Growing up, and they'd play that on a Sunday or whatever because you have to fill the airtime when you don't have news. I mean, Jamaica's a small island. Like, how much content can we produce for our station? So, I think that it's a big foundational part of like what we listen to is like really old country western. They love those themes. And you even hear it in like a Wayne Marshall song, Marshall in town, tell them, and it's the whole, they love it. They, you know, so I think for me, that's one of the things that a lot of people, even though they grew up around a lot of Caribbean people in New York, I think some of those really old school country, they didn't know, even, which surprised me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit different if you grew up in the island.
It's so interesting that you talk about country because I can think of, you know, of course, we know Kenny Rogers, the gambler. Oh my God. Even the other day, my husband was singing it, right? Um, I even to a certain degree, I've talked to Michaela, like, I really think Lionel Richie is a country singer, but they just put him in R&B. But one, but one country singer whose album went really pop that when I moved here, no one really knew about her is Crystal Gale, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone loved, and they loved her because she had hair all the way down to her ankles, so that was one thing. But all everyone would sing was A Long and Lasting Love, and they just kept singing that song over and over. So there's something there with the country music and Jamaica that is very interesting in terms of the correlation. So I can't wait to see it with your doc. So let's go back to the doc.
Yeah, yeah.
You are doing a crowdfund right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's the goal of the crowdfunding? Where are you in the production of this documentary? And I'm gonna add one more question because we want to know, is this going to go the film festival circuit? Is it going to be a general release? Let's know what's happening.
Okay, great. This is two great questions. We're still in pre-production actually. It's funny. I think the Kickstarter video was so strong that people are like, it's like a trailer. I'm like, not quite. You know, we have a lot to film. There's a lot of people I'm trying to get to be in the doc. Celine is obviously my Mount Everest of interviews that I'd like to have. I have people already on board, and so I've been amassing content and archival, and I've had some yeses for when I go to Jamaica in October. So I have a couple shoots already scheduled there, and I've shot like a couple small things already. But the crowdfunding is really for production, right? If you work in TV and film space, you are aware, or if you follow the industry trends, you know that it's been on a significant downturn since last year. Since the writer strikes last year, which has happened in last May. So I think the official numbers I saw the other day were like, it's like down 40% or something, which is a lot, right? It employs a lot of California, a lot of New York. So we've been in a really slow season. And I decided to launch the crowdfunding because I didn't want to wait to get told yes. I find in TV, just like with other trends, market trends in other spaces, and I'm not a business person by any means, trust me. I've learned that from this experience. But, there's certain times when they're green lighting certain things, right? Sports is hot right now. True crime is hot. Everybody wants to do a true crime doc. So it was kind of hard for a music space. And unless you're Caribbean, you don't think there's a big audience for this. If I was going to sign to like an executive somewhere, right? And I just didn't want to be waiting and waiting. I haven't worked as much as I normally work in the past year and a half. So I'm like, I could either use this time to stress myself out every day and applying for new gigs. And I've worked, but just not nearly as much as I normally work. Normally I'm like overlapping sometimes. It's so busy. Or I could put my energy into something that I actually want to make, care about, my people, my story. And then what's stopping me? Money. Right? That's the thing. That's the barrier, is the money. I think even the access to people, I know enough, and I think I'll get there. I used to, work for the music industry in Jamaica. So I was like, all right, if money is the issue, let's find money. And instead of waiting for, a Netflix or whoever to say yes, let's raise some money on our own, right? And hopefully people would either come or it gets made and like 100 people see it and it still got made and 100 people love it. That was where I landed. And so the amount I was raising is actually significantly less than I wanted to raise. But Kickstarter is all or nothing. So if you don't get all the funding, you get no funding. And it's not about not being ambitious, but you don't want to overshoot and then miss, right? And then get nothing. I'd rather have $20,000 than have, try to raise 40 but raise 32 and didn't get anything. You know what I'm saying? So that's where the Kickstarter came in. And I can elaborate, but I won't keep going.
No. And I think in terms of, if just explain a little bit more when you said you're in pre-production,
Yes.
just let the audience know specifically what that means. It's
Okay.
just like identifying the potential guest, etc., and then
Sure, yeah.
post-production, because we want the audience to support it and we want to explain to them clearly where you are in the
Absolutely.
process so
Yeah.
they could support it.
Cool. So all right, so you have like 4 stages essentially, actually 5 stages of production really. You have development, you have pre-production, you have production, post-production, and then distribution, right? We for a long time were in development, where I was researching and stuff like that, and then I started reaching out to people like, hey, like, there's people who have reached out to try and be in the doc, like our I Love Souls friends, that party, right, who we're gonna shadow them a bit and like shoot some of that party, right? That's obviously a something we want to showcase. That's a big part of the inspiration for the doc. So pre-production is where you have the funds, at least partially, right? And so you can start setting up shoots and start shooting and start setting up logistically what you're gonna do. Development is where you're really just doing research and kind of like the anthropological part. Production is where you're actually shooting. You're getting the footage, you're doing the shoots, you're on set. And then post-production is past that. It's done, now you're editing it. And then distribution is obviously where it starts. You're going to festivals, or you're going to your network or your Netflixes or wherever it's gonna land. My initial plan was to just get it made, right? And if I could get it into festivals, amazing. But the enthusiasm and the momentum since a week and a half ago has really stunned me. And I don't say that lightly, right? stunned. So I think there is a better conversation and a bigger conversation about where it's gonna land now, possibly. So maybe it's not just these small festivals anymore. Maybe it's like a bigger conversation. But I'm in talks with some people to see what can happen. And I do have a sponsor that came on board who challenged us to raise more money. Then they will kind of like match it, or there's going to be two ways. Like we already actually met one goal to get 50 backers, and they gave us 5,000, and then we'll do another campaign, and then we'll get another 5,000. So that's Blue Whole Capital. They're an investment company based in Jamaica. You guys might know about them. Yeah, with David Mullings. So they're great. So yeah, so that's like, I put it out there, at least the Kickstarter part, and people have been coming and circling and asking, which is great. Like, I can't ask for more.
Michaela, jump in when you have question, but in the meantime.
No, yeah, ask the questions they were having on my head, so that's why I'm not interrupt you,
So you said that you are overwhelmed and surprised by the response. And I want to know why, because we're in media in different spaces, but the reason why I started Carry On Friends, Michaela is doing Style and Vibes, and I do Breadfruit Media, because we think a fraction of what we represent on our culture is not necessarily out there for us to consume or interact with. So I'm not surprised by this. Like, I immediately like, Michaela, you see this? Right? So that was how I felt. So what was it about the response that surprised you? I just wanted to know.
Sure. I think what surprised me, I thought people would be excited. So the same way, like, oh, we talk about this all the time. I talk about it all the time. Every Caribbean person I know, especially who grew up in Jamaica or in Haiti, I know Haiti feels similar. I know some of Trinidad is like that. I think we all know this about it, about the Caribbean, and that we love it. But I guess I just didn't expect such a explosion of interest so fast. Like, I knew people would be interested. And I was saying to myself, listen, if I can get to like a 1,000 views in the first day or so, that's pretty good. Like, I knew my immediate network would care and the people in New York, but I hit, I think, 20,000 views in like 18 hours. The video is well past almost 60K or 60K at this point, just on Instagram. That's not even including Facebook. I think I just didn't know how. I wouldn't say I know people feel like this about souls and like that part of our culture. I guess I just didn't expect it to be so strong where people were sharing it for me. I have a crowdfunding team that helps me try to get the word out there. But for the first day and a half, like, people just did the work for us almost. Like, it was shared so much. If you look at my little icon thing, I think it's like 980 times on that one video, but my film page also has a bunch more. And then, each team member, theirs got reshared as well. You know what I mean? So the video is like baby viral, whatever. Like, it's not viral yet. I'm not on Shade Room, right? But like, it's like baby viral in like the Caribbean communities. And I was like, whoa, I think it's just the scale of the support surprised me. Not so much that people liked it, more just like, whoa. And people were talking as if it was like already made in one case.
Coming soon.
Yeah. And I said coming soon, like, oh, that's what you say in the Kickstarters. But I don't know. I'm just surprised that people latched onto it the way they did. I'm a producer, so I see so many, like, I don't say mistakes, but things I would change, right? I've watched the video a total of maybe 4 times, and that is to edit, right? Because I hate watching myself, listening to myself. I'm a producer for a reason. I like being behind the camera. But I was told by my crowdfunding coach that I need to be in front of it, and my enthusiasm will radiate. And I think it did. I think so. I think that's part of why people like it. I was also like looking for like comments about like my appearance. I was like, oh God, whatever people are gonna say. But I actually have seen none, 0. So people
look good, girl. Oh, you mean?
So people are really focused on the content of the video, which is what I really wanted. I think it was a scale of it so fast. Like, David Mullings, from Blue Whole Capital, he said that he got it. He reached out to me actually, and he said that he got it sent to him 4 times that day. Like, so, and I was like, really? And then I met this girl last week at a friend of mine had a birthday dinner. He's in New York from Jamaica, and the girl was like, "Oh, you're the girl from the video, the Souls video." I was like, "What?" Like, yeah, she lives here now, but like again, I didn't know it was reaching people who had also one said no to being on the team, because when I was looking for like crowdfunding team members, two people ended up dropping out or just not ghosting me. And then one of them was like, "Oh, somebody sent it to me on Twitter." And then she sent an apology. I've had sponsors who I reached out to try and do a matching campaign or help us reach back out to me after seeing the video, even though they ignored me. So that stuff has been like really interesting. I think that part of it has surprised me.
I think what truly happens is people like to see the concept, and because it was executed so well in terms of it was like its own mini doc, even though it was an introduction, right?
Yeah.
So I think conceptually we all have a connection to souls, and when you describe it versus when you have this tangible asset to explain it and get excited around, it's the first time that people are seeing this type of one focus on. We see cultural content get shared and distributed, but it's one by you to you're Jamaican, you have a connection. Again, your story radiates in the video, and you were able to kind of tie it into like a few minutes of, and like people can visualize what the entire doc would talk about. And Jamaican people still will love get excited. I about something new. We love make sure our culture debut.
Yes.
And we are very proud to kind of, when it's excellent, that's
I always tell people like
some people are gonna support
no,
it. So.
you're not wrong. I always tell people the two most obnoxious things to be is like Jamaican and New Yorker, like a New Yorker, because it's a lot. It's very true.
Levels.
Yeah.
No, like no. Let me do it in my bouncy voice. Levels. It's like.
And
No, it's so true.
And Brooklyn specifically. That's
if you come from Flatbush.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. I guess for me, so my editor said I had a few things about the video, and I worked with her before. So my editor, her name is Jenny Filippazzo. She's an Italian. I think she's Italian. I think so. Anyway, I worked with her on a docu-series I worked on last year for Xfinity about hip house, which is like hip hop and house music. You know, that little period they had in like the early 90s. And she was our editor, and she's amazing. And I basically said to Jenny, I told her I was trying to do that show was very stressful because the timeline was very short. Not stressful because of the content, but just like that a short window to make 3 episodes, right? 3 weeks essentially. So I knew she could do it. I knew she could do it fast. And I was like, listen, Jenny, I have no money. So I was like, it's a 3-minute video. I said, there's no more than 3 minutes. Like anything over 3 minutes for a Kickstarter is a death knell. You don't want more than 3 minutes. In fact, if I could get it down to 2.5 minutes, that is the key, right? I would love to, the shorter, the better. I'm aware of people's short attention spans. I'm convinced I have ADHD. So I want it to be short. I sent her all the stuff that you see in the video for the most part, like all the archival stuff I had sourced, the interview with Assassin, Agent Sasko, and the Elephant Man clip, all the stuff in there I had sourced, and like we kind of talked about how I wanted it to kind of look. And that version of the video is I guess like the 4th cut. It's the first one was like 5 minutes, and we cut it down to 3, and you know what I mean. And then I had a couple things. One of the things I noticed that is I hate to hear it, is that the audio doesn't match for the part where I'm like a kid, because I had shot this way back in February when I first had this idea. My friend shot it for free, and it's before I hired my coach Justin, I have a crowdfunding coach, and so he was like, you need like a personal thing, and I was like, oh, but I thought I explained that. He's like, no, you need something where you are talking about it in like a different way. And I was like, all right. So I was like, you know what? I can't reshoot it. I have no money for that. So I didn't pay him the first time. So I definitely don't money the second time. So So I was like, okay, I'm gonna find childhood pictures, and then we'll just put VO. So I was on a show working. So we had like an interview room because that's where I do all my interviews for the show. So it was quiet enough, right? It was at the studio in Jersey. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in there and record like 10 seconds of VO. 20 seconds was my absolute max because remember, I had like a 2.5 minute, like hard 3 minute max. No, my max was 3 minutes. So I went in there and I was like, these pictures, Jenny, have to fit into this like 15 seconds. And so for me, I hear it every time. If I listen to it, I'm like, oh, it doesn't match. But people wanted to hear it, and 2 days seem to love it anyway, so it's fine.
I can relate to, being an editor. You feel like, that not quite right. But I think that segment of it connected because we were all young listening to these music. Like I would tell, I mean, this is not quite souls, but I would talk to my husband, his sister, so my sister-in-law, her husband, brother-in-law, and we would talk about how Derek Harriott did sing some songs, and I'm like, we shouldn't have been singing these songs. But because the parents were singing it, and we remember because the music, it's the soundtrack of our lives,
It
right?
really is,
So
yeah.
you remember where you are at a particular time. Like Barry G, it was huge for me. So I remember what it was like coming home from school and listening to Barry G. So while you, from an editing perspective, didn't like that, the image of the kids or as a child resonates because we are all connecting. Michaela, all of us here started connecting to music when we are like a pitney, when we have no reason for saying I'm your lady, none of those things are I'm leaving on the next plane out, Celine Dion,
Or
whatever it
50
was.
Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon, which my dad is like one of his favorite songs ever. I'm like, should I
Listen,
be singing that?
my mom would kill songs by Surface and all these people, and I was just like, when I listened to them, I was like, why them just love all of these heartbreak songs?
They do.
There was just
Jamaicans love
like
a love song.
sad. Oh my
They
gosh. But
love a love song. They
my
do. Jamaicans are actually pretty sentimental people, I find, when it comes to music. And I read somewhere, and I think I said it in the doc about there's no guilty pleasure music. And I can't remember where I heard that quote from. I think it was from Diplo, actually, in like a Rolling Stone article. Because again, I've been reading up on a lot of this stuff for many months now. And it's true. Jamaicans, the way Americans are a little bit sometimes like elitist about music, like, oh, this is terrible, or like whatever. Especially like rock fans are like that. They're very like, this is not good. Jamaicans don't really have that gauge. Like they love a melody. They love big melodic ballads. And so I think that really is what is like their foundation. They love country music, I think, because of the storytelling and the outlaw theme. And then they just love a classic song, like a classic song structure. You know what I mean? Like they're not to say it's simple, because I think that a lot of the music is actually quite complex, and the way they redo it in reggae, which is another huge aspect, is really interesting. And one of the things I really don't want to get into in the doc, where people are like, see, we did this first. And like, I don't want any of like who is appropriate. Like, it's not about that. That's what I said in the end, because that's genuinely why I want to do this. I think there's so much, I think music in general, right, is so much about, just like food, so much about taking things and making something your own with what you have. Like a lot of the South, they claim country music, but some of those themes are Mexican. Actually, the cowboy hat is Mexican. Some of the band, the banjos from Africa. Like, I'm just saying, everybody takes their own thing and it becomes their own cultural stuff. And so that's what I want to focus on. Not about like you taking this from us and like, or from Trinidad, because I think Deo is actually like a Trinidadian song, the original version, before Harry Belafonte's version took off, right? I think the original, I have a whole grid of this stuff. And that's what I'm saying. And so it's not about like Trinidad getting upset. It's just like, listen, we're all connected, all the diaspora. We all have our own, we all made something different. Soca is its own thing, and Calypso. You know what I mean? Like, but it's all originated in like the same place. At least the foundation, I think, of music. And then you do what you can, right? Gumbo is literally
I think we, and Michaela, we talked about this in collectively, and we had a music ethnocologist on the podcast, and
Mm,
we talked about getting away from the origin story. And Michaela and I, we've been talking about this a lot, particularly
yeah.
with Afro beats and
Hmm.
dancehall,
Yes.
and it those conversations take away from the actual music that we're
I
trying to
agree.
enjoy. Like for instance, there was a when Beyonce came out with the whole country music, there was a documentary that talked about the first recording of a banjo or a type of banjo is the slaves in Jamaica. And I was so surprised.
Hmm.
And but Jamaicans not gonna claim that them create country music. It was just, you know, it's the history and from a creative perspective, that frees me up to not think of, not that I was, but I think it frees you up to think of myself only in boxes of dancehall, reggae, and soca.
Hmm.
I can be more than this because there's country, and I think that's why we love the music the way we do. And Michaela and I, we are creative in the way we are because culturally we were never boxed in. So you
Right.
talk about hip house. I grew up in that generation where we were
Hmm.
like dancing, hip hop,
Hmm.
and the
Timmy
house music.
D.
Yes, yes. Like now that you're doing, and they had the dance crews.
Yep.
So music, because that was a love that I have, because after TV sign off, you only had the radio.
Yes.
Because I had this variety of music, I was never boxed in to think of
Absolutely.
things a particular way.
Yeah.
I could, as again to Michaela's point, we could go into a party and there's a praise and worship segment,
Hmm.
there's the soca segment, there's the like there's so much because it represents how we think about music and how we communicate. And I think that's where we can free up ourselves creatively. I think Michaela loves to talk about how we like to box artists in, and
Yes.
artists don't want to, there's a time and place to box people in, and there's a time to put your fork down and claim a genre just because that's how the industry works.
Yeah.
And I think that trips up our artists in terms of, but I like souls and I like
Hmm.
gospel and I
The
like,
Jamaicans don't do that really.
so
No, and that's the thing. The souls because souls is not one genre. Like I would love to say it's just R&B because we love that, that Kelly Price and there's a few songs that we love, like Rock Me Tonight, We love some of those songs, but that's Freddie Jackson, I think. But you also play like a Mariah Carey song alongside it. You'll also play Celine Dion alongside it. You'll play, Ambrosia, who I posted last night along. It's not, we don't even do that. It's about for us, it's all the same kind of ballad structure. So we never really got into that. And I do find those conversations a little bit reductive. I hear this with like Afrobeats is taking over dancehall. It's like we're taking, and I'm like, well, I'm happy for them actually. I think that's great. I think it's time for Africa and Nigeria and South Africa to have their moments. A lot of those Afrobeats artists, a lot of their early stuff sounded like dancehall. They were heavily influenced. Wizkid, you can hear it in his early music. Burna Boy, you hear it in his early music. It sounds very close to dancehall, and I think they found their own, the more distinct sound, eventually. But like I love that they took inspiration, and Afrobeats is amazing. I listen to Afrobeats probably 60% of the week. Right, so it's not a time upset. I don't know why we have to do that. Like for me, when I heard the Chronics and Wizkid song, like this is my world in one place. Like I was so happy to hear that. I don't see the need to feel like we need to be upset about that. Also, Jamaica's like 3 million people on an island, and you're talking like a whole continent. You know what I'm saying? Like us, like that's crazy, right? We should all be, I think, a little bit more. This is just my opinion. I'm not advocating for anybody else to feel this way. Just I think it's more about using what you have and the influence and what the instruments, just like with food, and turning it into whatever it is that works for you. And some of it can be really amazing. I think some of the best reggae songs are covers of a soft rock song or a country song. Like I can't even imagine Missing You by Sanchez not existing. I can't imagine it. I love that song.
Or in the 80s where they were singing "You Got a Fast Car." That was like a whole cover of like,
Yeah, and I love both. I love
yeah.
Tracy Chapman, and I really love those versions of some of those songs. Like even like Country Road, Take Me Home. You know, like that is a great song. Also, Bob Marley's first records were covers. You know,
Mhm.
before he found his song and he was doing more reggae, he was doing like ska music at first. So that's not what this doc is about. So if anybody's looking for like, we did this first and like in like a more divisive, that's not going to happen. It's just not what I want to focus on. It's for me, it's like, and I hear Haiti. Listen, I see the comments. I hear you, Haiti. I hear you, Trinidad. I know they feel this way too. I'm like, I just don't have the resources to go all over the Caribbean to shoot, and but I know a lot of them feel similarly to Baby. Although, Jamaica is the only island Celine's come to. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think Souls is more about the tempo. And
Mhm.
so, the feeling that you get around the rock, what is even yacht rock, what they call it
Mhm.
now, pop ballads, country, R&B, a certain tempo of disco, like all of the 70s souls movement. Like it's really about this tempo, and I think the way the genres themselves aren't unique, but the way that it is packaged
Yes.
in Jamaica and in the Caribbean is unique, and that's a cultural thing. And I think
Absolutely. No,
kind
it
of
is.
kind of tying it back to what we were talking about. I think a lot of the miss conversations and the opposite ends really comes from equity, heritage, and mistreatment of culture. And so neither party is wrong in their
Mhm.
sentiment and perception. However, the equity has been lost amongst all of us.
I
And
agree.
I think that we have to do a better connective job
Mhm.
of recognizing each other and the history, because we've seen how history gets erased, right?
Yeah.
And so the conversations really get fired and passionate behind the potential erasure of collective history. We've seen it with country
Yeah.
music,
No, you're
and
right.
and we've seen it with hip hop music. So those consorted efforts to really say, hey, it's not just this, it is
Mhm.
this. And then someone telling you, no, it's this. And then we're like, but this is all well documented in history that it's not just this thing.
Right.
Why are you not including us? And you can literally hear the tempos, the this, the
Yeah.
that. And and to your point, the entire industry has evolved, and we the way that we consume music have created, the evolution of it. But again, I think the conversations really are about us being included in the conversations around
Absolutely. Yeah.
equity and inclusion of the historical references. And I think
Yeah.
we don't need to fight about it. And I think people fight more in the comment section than they do in
That's
person.
true.
So I think, social media community isn't necessarily like, no Caribbean person is really asking about whose rice is better than this one on a daily basis. Like nobody, I
In
will
person.
eat, I
Yeah.
will eat arroz candules, I will eat rice and
True.
peas, but we'll eat
Yeah.
the
That's
the 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 black rice. I'm gonna want a jollof rice too. I like all of them.
Mm.
But on the internet, it
It
narrows
can
this
be like that on
focus.
the
It
internet.
gets,
Yeah.
it's just the internet. So I think we all in a party. We hear Afro beats, we hear
Yes.
souls, we hear dancehall, we hear R&B. We can't
Yeah.
even do a little of the new hip hop stuff, and that is what I think most people really
I would
in
love
the
to
entire
experience.
Black diaspora really
Yeah.
want to
I would,
experience.
by the way, I wish more parties played souls here. I do. That's not like I think in Flatbush it happens, but if I go to like certain parties, that's not happening. And I miss it. I miss it a lot. I actually have to say, I have tried to create on my phone every night the same kind of playlist or same kind of like that Spotify. I mean, for Spotify that like Fame FM used to do at night, because I just it's I don't know.
Share
It's
it, please, and thanks.
No, no,
okay.
no.
I will share it. There's actually a few of them. If you just type in Souls Mix, a few people have done them already, and they're actually really, really good.
Really
There's
good.
like
Okay, I'm
songs with
definitely
like
gonna check them
like
out.
80 songs, and they're really good. So one of the tiers of the rewards for Kickstarter, at the $50 tier, there is you get a playlist with curated by me, with like I would say maybe like 40 or maybe not as many as that, but reggae covers of different genres. And then at the $100 mark, there is a Souls mixtape, curated just for the campaign by DJ Dangles from Federation Sound. And it's all the classics. He left out a few because there's some songs I want to tackle
I mean, come on,
in,
you can't have everything.
yeah, in the doc itself. And like even some things I try not to talk about too. I've talked a little bit about some of those things here, but I try not to talk about them too much because I want to make sure in the doc it feels fresh and not like, oh, I heard her say all of this, before in her social
No,
media.
there is so much we did not even cover.
Yeah, but
So
like even like the Marty Robbins thing, I actually don't post that just because it's a thing I really want to explore a little bit deeper because I see the connections being really so strong.
okay, so
Um,
what we need to do is make sure that before and after you search Marty Robbins, before like the search relevancy of
yeah,
Marty Robbins before and after the doc get released, because
true.
that is going to be
Yeah,
the
that's a good
indicator.
idea. My hope is that in some ways labels are more friendly to docs like this. You don't have to give us the whole song to use, but just I think it actually drums up interest more for those artists. I think nostalgia is a really powerful thing.
Mhm.
I think especially with millennials and Gen X, and I have a theory about this. I think it's because there's now the internet, right? But we grew up in some ways before the internet became like the way of the world. So these kids won't forget like what they liked. There's like a record there of their Instagram or whatever. But like we remember a time when we couldn't, I couldn't even Shazam. Like to your point about knowing Air Supply, the artist name. Like I didn't know who they were when I was 7. I didn't know the name of the band. We didn't have Shazam, right? I discovered that they were Air Supply later, right? So I think that the nostalgia for Gen X and then like millennials is really strong because we
I think
yearn for
even
that
for Gen
time.
Z, from an exploration perspective,
Yeah,
because if you
I
think
think
about
they
like shows
rediscover.
like Stranger Things
Yep.
that tap into that 80s era of
Yes. Yes.
nostalgia, like what's her name? Something Bush. Kate Bush, I
Oh, I
think
know who
is
you're
her
talking
name.
about. Yeah.
Like the resurgence of her inclusion, her music being included in Stranger Things
Yes.
really amplified people discovering her
And
and her
Fleetwood
music
Mac
and her
too
catalog.
during the
And Fleetwood
pandemic.
Mac, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it's they rediscover. I think they discover, but for us, it's like pure nostalgia.
Yes, yes. So for corporations, it equals more money. So that's why they should include it.
Yeah.
Completely. So we can do this labrishing thing forever, but we just want to. Michaela is laughing because we love music. Like I want to give you I call it my genre bending playlist because the mix up what is in this playlist on my phone does not make sense to anybody else out here. There's no reason why Gregory Abbott and Richard Mark should be on the same playlist, but it worked for me and Jamaica. So I wanted to just like put a pin here, get
Yeah,
people
sure.
excited about the documentary and support the thing.
Mhm.
And get excited about what creators like you are doing to present stories that mean so much to us being told in a way that just resonates, because it's not gonna just resonate with me. Me know say my mother and my uncle them will like it because when dancer keep out a street, and not for them ears alone, I hear it. All of us are hearing it, and that's what radio did for us growing up. We all heard it. We all
Yeah.
interacted with a different way. I remember when I was in grade 3 or grade 4, there was no reason why I'm singing Karen's White, I'm your superwoman.
I love that
there's no reason. But
Amen. We
every
love that song
Jamaican
there.
kid knows that
Yes.
song, right?
Yes.
Every Jamaican child knows that song. So that's the power of music, and that's the power of telling or interaction with music, even if it originates somewhere else. The way that a culture interacts with it creates a whole new story and experience. So I'm
Yeah.
super excited about it.
So
I
yeah.
will drop the link. Michaela and I will drop the links to the crowdfund. When does it end?
It ends on September 19th. We are about 55% funded right now. I'm just looking right now. So that's great, which is unusual for, crowdfunding campaigns for indie films. Um, our coach, like I said, I have a coach, Justin, that I'm working with, who's done this a million times. So he's been really helpful. But I put my own, I have my own ideas and spins on things. Like Mondays, we do Celine Meme Monday, right? On our social media, right? So it's all Celine all day, right? On a Tuesday, we're doing like trivia, like reggae trivia to see who knows which is a cover and stuff like that. And then the rest of the week is just fun stuff. Like we do a souls pick every day. So if you have any, people are welcome to give suggestions. We've taken many. Yeah, it's September 19th, but feel free to share it, like it. We have some new rewards coming up this week, I think. Yeah, we
That's
do.
exciting.
Couple
Yes, and
fun
I'm ready.
things.
I got to do my donation today, so.
Yeah, no, we're doing really well, and I'm also hoping to get like a good, momentum before the weekend because I know everybody's
Yeah.
going to be out and shaking their tail feather. I can't believe I said that, but yes.
Shake your bum bum.
I was gonna say something else, and then I changed.
Yeah, me know. Bam Bam is kind of cleaner. But on that note, Jess, this is not the last of us, but, again, congrats on the project. And we're super excited for you.
Thank you.
And of course. And as I love to say at the end of every episode, walk good. Well, Michaela, what you love say?
It's been so long. Later, my peeps. No, but make sure you guys go out and click the link, support Roots Rock, Reggae and Souls documentary. My emphasize the souls,
Yes. Yes.
Make sure we'll put the link in both of our bios and share on our socials. So make sure you guys go ahead and share with all your friend them, please and thanks, because we need
Anybody who
support.
loves anybody like Celine, Michael, it doesn't have to be like you're from the Caribbean. If you love one of these people, one of
Yes,
these artists,
yes,
Air Supply, you'll enjoy it, I think.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jess. We
Thank you
appreciate you
guys.
being on the show. So
Anytime.
this
All
was
right.
fun.
It was. We got to
We're
do it
ready for the
again.
schools
This is my
party,
thing.
huh?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
I mean, listen, let me know. I'm always around.
All right.
All right.
Bye,
Later.
guys.
1 second.